taking our Unit 1 practice quiz, which means we're going to have a quiz tomorrow. Or after we finish the practice quiz, if you feel good and want to take the quiz while it's fresh in your brain, I am happy to let you do that as well. So I am going to start by writing answer guide up here, just so that I can keep track of these answers. And remember, guys, you can use this on your quiz. This is like a good little study guide, a cheat sheet. Make sure you write down all the steps, write things that are going to help you remember what to do when you take the quiz. So let's start with number 1. Somebody read the directions to me.
Solve each quadratic equation by factoring. Show your work and circle your answers.
Yes. Okay, so we're doing factoring here. Show your work and circle your answers. Please show your work, guys. It's going to help me. If you get an incorrect answer, I can look back and see what you did wrong. I want to give you as much partial credit as I can. So whenever we are trying to solve by factoring, what is the first thing we want to look at?
The A, B, and C.
Yes, A, B, and C. What are our A, B, and C here?
1.
1.
9. Negative 22.
Good, negative 22. So since A equals 1, what is our factored form going to look like in each set of parentheses?
X plus or minus.
X plus or minus something?
X plus or minus.
X plus or minus something. Good. And how do we figure out what those numbers are going to be?
Factors of negative 22.
Yes, factors of negative 22. So what are some ideas?
1 and 22, 2 and 11.
Negative 1, 22, negative 2 and 11. Let's see. Since A is 1, what are we doing with these numbers to figure out which ones are correct?
Add them together.
Yeah, we're just going to add them together, and we want them to add up to B. We want them to add up to 9. So we might already have that.
Negative 2 and 11.
Yeah, negative 2 plus 11, that's 9. So we're going to use these numbers. So what is going to go in here?
Negative 2.
No.
Plus 9. Plus 11.
Plus 11. We're going to use the factors we found, x minus 2 and x plus 11. So this is our factored form. Are we done now with the problem? No, we have one more step to do. I want you to solve the equation. We're not just factoring. How do we solve now?
2 different equations.
Yeah, we're going to have 2 different equations. We've got x minus 2, and this is equal to 0. And then we have x plus 11 equal to 0. Okay? And we know we're just going to use inverse operations here. Minus 2, I'll add 2 to both sides. Plus 11, I'll subtract 11 from both sides. So we're going to get x equals 2 and x equals negative 11. These are our 2 answers. Any questions about number 1?
No.
I'll give you guys a minute to get that copied down. All ready for number 2, or do we need a minute? Okay, let's go ahead and look at 2 then. That's my first step.
A, B, and C.
Identify A, B,
Yeah,
C.
A, B, and C. What is my A?
5.
5. My B?
19.
Good. My C? 12. Okay. What is something that I should check for if A is greater than 1? Yeah. Is there a GCF here? Is there any greatest common factor?
No.
No, there's not. So what does that mean about my format of my factors? About what's going to be in my parentheses?
Just 5.
Yes, A needs to be in my answer, 5. So we're going to have 5x and x. Okay.
12.
Yes, factors of 12. What are some of those options?
12.
1 and 12,
2 to 6,
2 and
4 and 3.
6, 3 and 4, 4 and 3, 6 and 2, 12 and 1. That's all of them.
This is gonna be pretty.
So, this is the part where we probably want to be able to do a little bit of mental math so that we don't write a novel of all the different types of problems we could come up with to check our answers. What's something that we could do kind of in our heads to decide which numbers we could rule out immediately?
Rainbow. Wait.
Oh, now 12 will be too big. The 5 times 12 would be too big.
Yes. Okay, so both of you are correct. Remember when we do this, we use that rainbow method. We multiply our inner terms and then we multiply the outer terms and add them together. So if I know that that answer needs to be 19x when I add them together, when I do the rainbow method, I know I'm going to be taking 5x times whatever number goes in the second parentheses. So if I'm looking here at my list, I can right away in my head know that 5 times 12 is going to be too big because I need it to be 19. Okay, so I'm going to cross that one off. Is anybody confused about why we could rule that out?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Okay,
No.
cool. How about 2 and 6? That's 5 times 6. 30. That's going to be too big. It's already bigger than 19. We're going to cross that one off. What about 5 and 4? That makes 20. That's too big. What about 5 and 3?
15.
15. Okay. You want to try that one? I think it's going to work because I know I'm just going to add 4 and that makes 19. But let's write it out anyway. So we're going to try 4 and 3. 5x plus 4 and x plus 3. Check our answer. 4 times x, 4x. 5x times 3 is what? 15x. Yeah, and 15x plus 4x, that's going to give us 19x. And that's what we wanted. So we know these are our factors. So are we done? We're done factoring, but we're not done with the problem. We still have one more step to do. How do I solve for x?
Break. And separate them into equations.
Yes, we want to do 2 separate equations here. I'm going to take everything in the first parentheses. 5x plus 4 equals 0. And I've got x plus 3 equals 0. Okay. Let's do the 5x plus 4 first. What is my first step to solving this equation?
Minus 4 from both sides.
Good, minus 4 from both sides. And that gets rid of my 4s. And I'm left with 5x equals negative 4.
Then you take 5 from both sides?
Yes. So we have 5 times x, that's multiplication. We're going to do the opposite to get rid of it. What's the opposite of multiplication? Division. We're going to divide both sides by 5. Cancel my 5s. And I'll be left with x equals what?
Negative 0.8.
Yeah, you could divide in your calculator. Negative 4 divided by 5 is negative 0.8. Or you could leave it as that fraction. I'll take either answer. You could keep it as negative 4/5, or you could divide and get negative 0.8. Either one is correct. There's our first x. Okay. I need to solve that other equation. X plus 3 equals 0.
Minus 3.
Minus 3 from both sides. We'll get x equals
Negative
-3.
three.
Perfect. All right. I'm only gonna ask you 2 questions where you factor. That's it. Just those 2. Before we move on to the quadratic formula, do you have any questions about factoring?
I will be like.
You're fine. Take your time. Any questions? Ready for number 3? Okay. So for 3 and 4, we're going to be using the quadratic formula. Now, I am going to highly recommend that you write out the quadratic formula on your practice quiz in case you forget it. That way you have it there to look at when you take the actual quiz. Let's write that formula over to the side here. I'm going to turn my paper for it. So x equals what?
Negative
Good. Negative b.
plus or minus.
Oh, this is blurry.
The square root.
Good. Plus or minus the square root of what?
B squared
Mm-hmm.
minus 4 A
A.
Z
Good.
divided by 2 A.
Good. Divided by 2 A.
Well, remember.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. And remember, this is just like doing the discriminant underneath the square root. In case it helps, I'm gonna group these. Remember, we kind of grouped it. The b squared is one part. -4 times a times c is another part. If it helps to draw those grouping symbols, go ahead and do that. That way you remember what you're doing. Stop that. Can I turn my paper?
Can you use these on the tool?
Yes. You'll be able to use any notes you have. You'll be able to use this practice quiz. Anything you got. All right, let's look at number 3. What should we do first?
Identify your A, B, and C.
Yes, let's figure out what A, B, and C are. A is 2. B is
-11.
good, -11. And C,
-3.
-3. So let's start plugging things in. X equals negative what?
-11.
Negative 11. Don't forget the -11 is on your B, and we're putting another negative on the outside of it. So that's going to cancel out. Remember, a negative times a negative makes a positive. This is going to turn into positive 11. Plus or minus square root. What are we writing here?
11. Negative 11.
Good. -11 squared minus 4 times
2
2
times -3.
times -3.
Divided
Perfect.
by.
Here, sorry guys. There we go. Divided by
2 times
2 times 2. Perfect. Let's start simplifying. So I'm going to bring this down here. X equals -11 becomes positive 11 plus or minus. What's -11 squared?
121.
121. It's positive 121. And then I've got -4 times 2 times -3.
24.
And those two negatives will cancel and make a positive. So we're doing 121 plus 24. under our square root. And all of that is divided by 2 times 2, which is 4. Good. Let's simplify that square root. 11 plus or minus 121 plus 24. Going to give us 145. Divided by 4. Okay. So once we're to this point where we have a number plus or minus a number under a square root divided by something, what do we do here? What's our kind of turning point in the step? One more time.
Make two.
Yes, we're making 2 equations. We're going to separate that plus and minus. So let's do that. I'm going to have 11 plus square root of 145 over 4. And I'm going to have 11 minus the square root of 145 over 4. Now remember, whenever you're typing these in your calculator, don't type it all at once unless you're using parentheses. Let's see if it'll let me do it. No. So we need to do 11 plus the square root. Everybody remember how to use the square root function? Okay, perfect. 145. We're going to get this answer first and then divide by 4. I got 23.04 for my top number here.
I did not get it.
What did you get?
No, I did not get that.
What'd you type in? I didn't divide by 4 yet.
Oh, you haven't finished the equation?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So I just did the 11 plus
Yeah,
radical
carry
145.
There.
Then I divide by 4 and I got 5.76.
Yeah.
Okay. You guys tell me if you're getting something different. X equals 5.76. That's my first X value. Okay. So you're doing my second one. Do 11 minus square root of 145. I got negative 1.04 over 4. Divided. Okay, for my second answer, I got negative 0.26. Before we go on, make sure you guys finish solving this and tell me if you got something different. Let's talk about it and figure out what step we might have missed. Is everybody getting that same answer?
Yes.
Good. If anybody's getting something different, let me know. Are you okay with us moving to number 4? Anyone still need to work for 3? Last call for number 3. Anybody need this work?
I'm sorry.
You're okay. Do you still need this work here?
Yes.
Okay, I'll wait a second. Take your time.
Okay.
All right, let's look at number 4 now. First step,
A, B, and C.
A, B, and C. Our A is 5. Our B is 2. Perfect. And our
C is
C
-7.
Good, -7. Okay. So let's go ahead and write out that formula and plug our values in. I've got -2. Good. Plus or minus
2 squared.
2 squared.
4.
5 times -7 over 2 times 5. Good. Good. Okay. So now we've got all our values plugged in. We're going to simplify as much as we can. So x equals that. Parentheses around the 2 can go away. This would be -2. Plus or minus. What's 2 squared? 4. -4 times 5 times -7. What's that? 140. Good. So plus 140. All being divided by 2 times 5, which is 10. Perfect. Okay. Let's go even further. -2 plus or minus 144 over 10. Now, in most cases, I'm not going to tell you that you should do the square root before splitting your equation. But if you are able to recognize this, this is a perfect square. The square root of 144 is not going to give us a funky decimal. So let's go ahead and figure out what that is. I got 12. So you could keep the square root on there when you split, but I think I'm actually going to take 12 instead. So when I split my equation, I'm going to have -2 plus 12 over 10. And I'm going to have -2 minus 12 over 10. On the -2, you're confused?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the very first part of our equation where we plugged in our b, which was 2, into the quadratic formula right
It was
here.
a positive.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, our b is
Okay.
positive, and since we've got that negative on the outside, it turns it negative.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
No, it's a good question. Anything else? Go ahead and solve these out. This is -2 plus 12. 10. And that's divided by 10,
Which would be 1.
which is 1. Good. So our first answer is x equals 1. Now, what's -2 minus 12? Negative 14. We could also remember, this is what I always do in my head. When I have a negative number and I'm subtracting from it, we're really just adding the negative numbers together. Negative 2 plus negative 12 is negative 14. I've got negative 14 over 10. What's that going to be when we put it in our calculator? Yes, we're going to get negative 1.4. So that would be our other x value. Somebody say wait. Okay. I'm gonna finish copying stuff down. Yeah.
So.
Alright, let's look at page 2. Okay. So on the second page, this whole page is all about the discriminant. Okay, so remember the discriminant is just the part of the quadratic equation that's underneath the square root. So at the top of our quiz here, let's write the formula for that so we don't lose it. Make sure we have it. D equals what?
D equals B squared
Good. B squared.
plus negative 4
Yes.
times A times C.
Good. A and C. B squared minus 4 times A times C. And same thing we did with the grouping symbol. You can think of it as finding out B squared and then finding out negative 4 times A times C. That helps with. And here, well, actually, let me put in black the things that you're not changing. All you're doing is putting A, B, and C into this formula. We're doing. Now, before we solve these, number 5 through 8, let's actually answer the 3 questions on the bottom, 9, 10, and 11, because that's going to help us with our answers for 5 through 8. So I'm going to move my paper down. So for number 9, when D equals 0, meaning whenever we use that formula and we solve it out, we simplify it, if your answer is 0, that means what?
One.
Yes,
Real solution.
one real solution. So we're going to write 1. Just means there's one real solution. Okay, number 10, we've got when the discriminant is less than 0 or when the discriminant is a negative number. How many solutions?
There's no imaginary
Yes.
solutions.
That means there are no real solutions.
You said 2 imaginary solutions too.
Yes, 2 imaginary solutions. So you could write that, but I'm not going to ask you for it on this quiz. 2 imaginary, if you're curious. And number 11, when the discriminant is greater than 0, or when it's a positive number,
Two real
yes,
solutions.
there are 2 real solutions. That's all you need to know there. Now, on your quiz, don't go into autopilot and look at your practice quiz and say, oh, 1, no, 2. Fill them in. Read the questions. They probably won't be in the same order as this, okay? Don't just copy and paste. Make sure you know what you're writing.
Darn it.
Can't make it that easy.
Fine, be that way.
Okay. Now we'll be able to use that as a guide to help us answer these 4 questions. So first, we're finding the discriminant of each equation, and then we decide, based on the answer we get, how many real solutions there are. You gotta show your work, you gotta circle your answer. So let's do number 5. What should I do first?
Can I go ahead and answer?
Yes, always your first step is to label your A, B, and C. My A is -3. My B is 10, and my C is 1. So now I'm just gonna write out the formula and plug values in. A something squared, 4 something times something. Thanks. You're okay, you're okay. All right, what goes in our first parentheses here? 10, that's our B. Then it's -4 times A, what's A? Good, -3 times C, which is good, -1. Perfect. Okay, so we've got it ready.
Wait, what are we adding together again on these?
So what we're doing is we're gonna find 10 squared, and then we're gonna find -4 times -3 times -1. And whatever these two numbers end up being, we're gonna put them together. We're gonna combine them. So if this is a negative number, we're gonna do 10 squared minus that number. If it's a positive number, we add. So what's 10 squared? That is 100. That B equals 100. And now let's see what -4 times -3.
-12,
Okay.
-12.
3 times -1. -12. So are we gonna write +12 or -12? Good, -12. And what is 100 minus 12? 88. So the first step was to find the discriminant. We just did that. We're gonna circle that. That's our first part. B equals 88. So now we need to answer the second part of our question. It says determine how many real solutions there are. How many?
2.
2 real solutions. So someone tell me, why do you know there's 2 real solutions?
Positive number.
Yes, it's a positive number. D is greater than 0. That's what we put down here on number 11. So there's 2 solutions. 2 real solutions. So I actually saw somebody abbreviate this in a cool way. And if you don't want to have to write out 2 real solutions, you could just write 2RS. Yeah, I think I took that from you, Cedra. I like that. So cute. So you could do either of these and I'll take them both. Any questions about number 5? Yes, Wes.
So if we do both of those, do we get extra credit?
No. No extra credit for abbreviating. That's goofy. You do have some bonus questions on this quiz though, and I'll point those out when we get there. Everybody ready to move to 6, or does anyone want a bit more time to keep writing? Let's look at 6. What is our A, B, and C?
-4.
Mm-hmm. B is
-6.
6, and C is
7.
7. Good. So let's make formula. We're going to do B squared minus 4 times A times C.
-6 squared
Good.
times -4 times 7.
Good. That's -4 times 7. Okay. So if this helps, I'm going to group these so we know what we're doing separately. And what is -6 squared?
36.
36, positive 36. And negative 4 times 7. 112. Good.
Wait,
So,
I'm confused.
what you confused about?
Cause I put -6 squared on here and it came out to -6.
Yes. Okay, so we've talked about this a couple of times, but let's talk about it again. Let's make sure we all remember this. If you type in your calculator -6 squared, your calculator is going to read this as -1 times 6 squared, right? And so it's going to do 6 squared first and give you 36, and then it'll make it negative. In order for us to get the right answer, we would either need to type in -6 times -6, or we would need to do parentheses around our -6 before we square it. Or we could just remember that anytime we square a number, it's positive. So I normally just don't type the negative. I just 6 squared like that. Does everybody get that? Anytime you square a number, it's always going to be positive. Okay. All right. And then we said that was 112. Are we adding 112 or subtracting? Good. Add 112. So what is that going to give us as our answer?
148.
Good. 148. How many solutions are there?
2.
2. 2 RS. Yeah. As you guys are copying those down, let me know if you've got any questions. Anybody still need this, or can I move on? No. Okay, let's check number 7. Number 7, what's our A, B, and C?
2.
Good. 2's A,
-8.
-8 is B, 9 is C. Good. Okay. Let's write our formula out again. D equals B squared minus 4 times A times C. Do the grouping. So B is -8, so I'm going to write -8 in my first parenthesis. -4 times A times C. A is 2, C is 9. Right. First we'll solve B squared. 64. I always remembered 8 squared as a high schooler because my teacher taught me a little rhyme. She'd say, 8 and 8 went to the store. They bought Nintendo 64. You'll never forget it. So yeah, 8 times 8 is 64. Okay, how about -4 times 2 times 9?
-72.
Yes, -72. So,
-8.
yep, 64 minus 72, our discriminant is -8.
No.
Ah, good. No real solutions.
NRS.
Yep, you could write NRS. No real solutions. Or if you like, you could put a 0 with a cross through RS. I'll take either, or I'll take the words written out. There's a lot of different ways to annotate that. Remember, we figured out that there's no real solutions because we got a negative number for our discriminant. And if D is less than 0, or if our discriminant is a negative number, that means there's no real solutions. Any questions on 7? Anybody still need the written word? We okay to move to 8? Okay, let's do 8. Last discriminant problem. Figure out A, B, and C. Our A, 1. Our B, 3. And our C,
2.
2. Okay. D equals B squared or A D. So first parenthesis, B is 3. 4 times A is 1 times C, that is 2.
Your square is not.
Yes. 3 squared is 9. 1 plus negative 9. And then
Minus 8.
negative 4 times 1, that's just negative 4, which is times 2 is negative 8. Okay, so now we have 9 minus 8, which is 1. B equals 1.
No real solution.
Let's see.
2 real solutions.
Is it greater than 1, less than 1, equals?
Greater.
It is greater, or I said greater than 1. It's greater than 0. It's a positive number. 1 is a positive number, so that means there are how many?
2.
2 real solutions. Yes.
Yeah, I had negative 1.
R2RF. So we could even make a little guide if trying to compare it to 0 is a little tricky. I'm gonna write out to the side here, positive means 2 real solutions. Negative. No real solutions or and the other one is
Equals to.
yeah. So remember, if you get an answer that says D equals 0, that means there's 1 real solution. 1 R F. So there's a little key. Might be helpful to you guys. How you're going to determine the second part of your answer there. Any question? Anybody still need this page at all? Can we go forward? Okay. Look at page 3. And that's it. This is your last page of your quiz. So now we're looking at parabolas. Okay, so we're just going to be identifying the different features that I have listed off to the side, and we're going to learn something new today a little bit. But this is a bonus question. So let's start with the first question on number 12, a direction of opening, what is it?
Down.
Yeah.
It's down. So what I'm gonna have you do is just circle up or down. It's down here. Facing down. Now, on your quiz, I don't want you to just fill in the blanks for your answers. I try to give you lots of room. I want you to label your graph. And I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's start with our vertex. Where is the vertex on this parabola?
Negative 2.
Okay, yeah, let's see. Here's the vertex, it's right here. And it's lining up with -2 on the x-axis, +2 on the y. So -2, 2. So to label that, we're going to also write the coordinate above it right here. -2, 2. It's our axis of symmetry.
Negative.
-2. All you do to find the axis of symmetry is take the x value of the vertex. That's it. If it's -2 on the vertex, that means your axis of symmetry is -2. X equals -2. So I want you to draw that. Draw your axis of symmetry. Give me a nice dotted line going through the vertex. Like this. And then on that line, I want you to write x equals -2. Like that. You should label that line. Yeah. Now let's look at our zeros. We're going to go from left to right.
-5, 0.
Yes, we've got right here, -5, 0.
1, 0.
Good, and 1, 0. And I'll label those on our graph as well. So I'm going to write over to the side, 1, 0. And if it stresses you out trying to write on the grid, I don't mind if you draw a line and point to it and write it outside of the grid or outside of the graph. If that makes it feel a little bit cleaner for you. Okay, and then we've got one more thing. Why is that? Good. Over 0, up 1. +1. This one I'm going to draw a line. 0, 1. Very nice. Okay. So I am gonna get some highlighters out to help explain what domain and range are. But I'm gonna wait to get started on explaining this until everybody is done filling this part out. So does anyone need more time filling out the first part of number 12? You ready to talk about the bonus? Okay. So, domain. Does anybody know what domain is? It's going to be our x values. We're looking at where this parabola is going to be touching or reaching in the x-axis. So the x-axis is going left to right. My parabola has arrows on the end telling me that this is going to keep going on forever and ever and ever in both directions. So on a number line, we normally have numbers that go all the way down to negatives. We've got -1 through -6. If we kept going our smallest number would be negative infinity. And our biggest number on the other side would be positive infinity, because it never ends. They go on forever in both directions. So if this parabola were to keep going on and on and on and on and on forever in both directions, our domain is just going to be negative infinity, comma, positive infinity. And we write it in parentheses. The domain tells us how far does this parabola reach in the x direction. It goes from here to here. Yes, Michael.
So that would make range negative infinity too.
Yes. Oh my gosh, you're awesome. Yes. Yes, it would. Yes, it would. So here, I'm gonna explain how you figured that out too. Or you know what? Actually, Michael, can you tell me, how did you know that? How did you know it was negative infinity to positive 2?
Well, because our symmetry is two, and that's the bottom of, that's the highest y goes.
Yes. Okay, so whenever we're looking at range now, so domain was our x values. So our range, label this is going to be our y values, which is up and down. How high and how low does it go? So here's how we're going to be able to tell that. We can see that this parabola, like I said a minute ago, it's got arrows on the end, so it's going to continue going down to the negative numbers forever. It will never stop going down in the y direction. So I know it goes -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6. I could keep going, but the smallest number is going to be negative infinity for y. But the difference here is with the parabola, we actually have a boundary. Since our parabola is facing down, once we hit that vertex, that top point, it will never go any higher than this. Parabolas keep going in the direction that they point. These little, the legs of the parabola are not going to turn around and go back up. They're going to stay going down. So we know this is the highest point at y equals 2, because our y value on the vertex is 2. So our range, we're going to write it the same way as domain. We start with the parentheses, and we always start with the smaller number, which in this case is negative infinity, comma, and then we go to our highest number, which in this case is positive 2. Now, instead of a parenthesis, we put a bracket for the number. This just means that we are including 2 in the range. That's how we would write that. And I'm going to also see if I can. This is our highest point here. Our range. Now, does anybody have questions about domain or range? I know we've never really talked about that. This is brand new. That's why it's bonus. Does anybody feel a little confused about it? Or
I'm
have
completely lost.
completely lost?
Yeah, I was.
Where are you lost on it?
All around.
Just for domain and range, though,
Yeah,
right?
I've never even heard of it. It's just nothing new.
I get you. I get you. So all domain and range is we're kind of we're defining the boundaries. We want to see how far does this parabola touch on the x-axis and on the y-axis, or not how far does it touch, but how far do the x values spread across, or how far do the y values spread up and down. This is just a way that we write it to kind of explain what the boundaries are. So if somebody were to ask, would the y value 3 fit on this parabola? And we know that since the y value 2 is the highest one, we know 3 doesn't fit. But the y value 3 is right here. And that's not ever going to touch this parabola, no matter where it is on the x-axis. It's just a way to specify our boundaries.
Is it always gonna be, negative, comma, positive?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you have an upward parabola that is the lowest point is a positive number. But you're
Okay.
always going to have the smaller value first.
Okay.
Good question. Good question. And remember, if you are totally lost, we can talk about it more. But at the end of the day, these are bonus questions. If you get them wrong, they won't hurt you. They'll only help. And me for 12. Does anybody still need to look at this before I move to 13? I don't want to move it too quick. Okay. 13. Which way is it opening?
Up.
Up. Good. Where is my vertex?
2, -5.
2, -5. So what does that make my axis of symmetry?
2.
2. Good. Look at that. Now you're all. Two.
Sometimes you do.
Where are my zeros?
-1, 0, 5, 0.
-1, 0. Well, oops, I put the wrong number. Okay, hi. 0. By our y-intercept now.
0, -3.
Good. 0, -3.
Do we need to label them on the graph too, or just?
Yes, yes. So this time I do want you to label your axis of symmetry, and I want you to label each of your points.
Can you color code them instead, because there's not enough room to write on.
So what I was showing you is if you don't want to write it like on the graph, you could also draw a line and write it. But I do want you to write the numbers on the graph so that I can make
Oh,
sure
I
I
thought
see.
you meant the letters.
Oh no, just the points, the coordinates. But you're welcome to color code it too. Okay. Now here is a trick for domain and range. With a parabola, your domain will always be negative infinity, positive infinity. Every time. That will never change. So that's a free bonus point. If you just remember that on your quiz, this answer won't change. Your domain will not change. But it's really stretch ever in the right and the left direction. This time, for your range,
-5.
ooh, yeah, what's our lowest y value? Michael, you just said it.
Negative
We've
5.
got -5 down there. That's the lowest point that is in the y direction. So -5 is that boundary. We start with the smaller value. So I'm gonna write with a bracket. Our numbers go in a bracket. -5, comma. What would the second thing we write be? Infinity. It goes on forever. There you go. So that's gonna be it for your quiz, guys. It's gonna be it. That's it. So now that we have finished our practice quiz together, once you're done getting everything all written down and nice and, nice and neat and good and you're ready, show me that you filled it out before you leave. That's gonna be your exit ticket grade today. Yeah, if you want to take the quiz before tomorrow, you can come back after lunch and take it. If you would rather spend time studying and, maybe wait, then you're also welcome to take it tomorrow. But that is gonna be all for today. How about this? Everybody hold your papers up. I'll say your name to say that I've marked you as I got it.